Right, it's time for a change. The white walls of my studio are going and I'm not quite sure which colour to replace them with, but the good news is I don't actually have to decide now because this is a non-permanent change. The white walls of my studio I'm going to colour with gelled light, and because I've got white walls I also end up with really obvious shadows, and the good news is those shadows are going to take on the same colour as the gels. Now, there are several ways we could do this, and I'm going to do it in several different ways. So I think the first thing I need to do is get some light set, let's get a model in, and let's get shooting. To help me out today, I've got the amazing Chloe. Chloe's going to be the model for this photo session, and before we get going, we need to set up the camera. So I've got my usual flash sync speed at 250th of a second, f5.6 for a reasonable depth of field, ISO 200, but I've also dialed in a custom white balance, and I'll talk about that when we get to the gels. If I take a picture at those settings, no flash, no picture. And that's really important, not just because we're in control of the lighting, but today we want shadows, and really that was the maximum shadows we can see. Now, obviously we need to see Chloe, so I've got a flash here. It's the Flashpoint Explore 300 with a 10 or 20 degree grid, just to put a small amount of light, well, like this. The light is slightly off center, which means I'm throwing a slight shadow behind Chloe. If it was directly in line with the camera, you wouldn't see the shadows, and we need shadows for this to work. There's also lots of shadows around the outside of Chloe, and that is where we're going to add the color with a second flash. I've got a Flashpoint Evolve 200 Pro Mark II as my second light, and whatever light you're using, to gel a light effectively, you need to make sure that you completely cover the surface of the light so none of the white light sneaks out the edges. And the easy way to do that in this case is just point it straight up. I'm going to bounce the light off the ceiling anyway to flood this room with light, and we might as well make it coloured light. So I've got a gel, and I can just rest it on top like that, and magically, that's going to completely cover that light. Now, once I've done that, I can take a meter reading, and I've got to do that after I put the gel on because gels affect the amount of light that reaches your subject. So let's take a meter reading. Chloe, I'm going to pop this near your chin, and I'm looking for f2.8 as my target light to come out of this light. So roughly 2 stops below where I'm going to be photographing. It's not an exact science, but it's a good place to start to get a nice rich color on a white wall. So that actually means 1/4 power at the moment. I've turned the main light back on, so the two lights are going to work in conjunction like this. The gel light is going to give a wash of color, and the key light is going to punch a white hole through that color. But where it gets interesting is what's happening behind Chloe with the shadows, because the shadow is taking on the same color as the gel. Now, to make this happen, it's really important that you put your gel light on the side of the shadow. If it was on this side, the effect would be much reduced. And the more shadow you have, the more you're going to see the effect. So if I move the light off to the side, the shadow's going to go off to the side. In fact, moving the lights around is a really good idea, so that's exactly what we're going to do as we take a few photos. So Chloe, are you ready? Let's take a few photos like this, and I might even swap the colour of the gel around as we go. I mentioned the white balance earlier, and I've set that so the white light actually records as white light, but it also means that the gel color is consistent as I go through my images, and none of the color is going to alter the white balance of the images from one picture to the next. Different coloured gels absorb more or less light, so if you do switch gel colours halfway through like I am here, you need to double check that your exposure for the gel light is still what you want. For the next look, I want to increase the number of shadows we get, and I'm going to do that by increasing the number of lights. And whilst we've got more lights, we might as well add more gels for more colourful shadows. This time I'm not going to bounce the light off the ceiling, it's going to be direct light. That's how I'm going to create the shadows behind Chloe. So I can't do the thing of just sort of letting that stay. How do you attach a gel to a horizontal light? Well, gaff tape or duct tape is a good choice. Just attach a little bit of tape to the edge of the gel and attach that to the edge of the reflector. And there you go, that should maximize the coverage of the reflector, minimize the white light spill. Now I want these lights to measure f2.8 once again. So let's see what we've got. I'm going to pop this on this side. f2.8 exactly. And the other side, also f2.8. So once again, these are about 2 stops below the key light, which I've already metered out. Now this time I've got the key light in line with the camera and vertically up. So there will be some shadows, but it's mostly going to be these edge lights that are creating the shadows. So not only have we got 2 colors left and right, but we've got shadows that are also those colors. But I want to have some white in this image somewhere. So to get some white back in, we're going to add in the key light, just like we did before. It's still got the tight grid on it. I'm just going to turn it on. I've already metered this out, and it's just going to push a little bit of light just where Chloe is and lift her out from the color like that. The only problem is I've got to get it a little bit more central than that, but that we can do as we take a few photos. And that is basically this setup done. Should we take a few photos? Let's take a few photos like this. Here we go. I want to move these lights around, so today I'm using lightweight light stands, but I'm not going to put them symmetrically around Chloe. I've got one off to the side giving me asymmetric and more interesting shadows. I'm also going to put one light higher than the other, and that will affect the shadows and again make them just that little bit more interesting. Getting that white spotted light just on Chloe's face is actually quite a challenge, but luckily the Explore 300 has a modeling lamp that's bright enough that I can actually see the results before I press the shutter. I've got 3 flashes, so why not do 3 colored gels? I mean, that's a good idea, except if you want white, then, well, none of them are going to be white light. However, that's not entirely true, because if you happen to have red, green and blue colored gels, where they would overlap, you'd get a mixture which is white light, exactly what I'm after. Now, before I just put them in easy reflectors and do something straightforward, I thought, no, let's make it a bit more challenging. So I found 1 old and 2 newer projectors that are going to project circles of colored light. Now, there's a knack to doing this. Not only do I need to make sure they're all in focus and they're all different, so they're all at different distances, but I also need to make sure that the individual brightnesses are the same. So each one of these I've metered out to be 1 stop less than my target final exposure, because when they combine together, they're going to become brighter than their individual parts. I've also overlapped them because somewhere they need to overlap for white, but I haven't overlapped them all together. Let me just show you what I mean. If I can make my way through the forest of light stands, and I'll leave gear links, by the way, to all of this stuff in the video description. We've got colour on the wall, but also colour in the shadows, which is what this is all about. We've got red, we've got yellow, we've got green, we've got blue, we've got cyan, we've got magenta. They're all in there somewhere. Now comes the fun bit, because we're going to move Chloe around, but also I'm going to move the lights around. But if I move the lights too much, I'll need to repeat this process again. So yeah, we're going to take a few photos and see what happens. Okay, Chloe, here we go. Let's start by moving this light a little off to the side. Small adjustments, big changes. The key to this working is overlapping those 3 circles of light somewhere. Even so, it doesn't guarantee you a pure white because the gels might not be pure colors, the brightnesses may not be perfect. So to make sure I get it right in post-processing, I've given Chloe the color checker passport. That will allow me to get a reference image that I can then make sure I've got white in post-processing. Now, if you're asking yourself the question, could I have done this without projectors? The answer is yes, and it would have been much easier as well. I wouldn't have got the neat circles, but I would have filled the room with light, and somewhere there would have been that white colour where all the colours overlap. Now, if you've got any other questions about what I've been doing, why not go down to the comments and ask them there, or just say hello in the comments. Click the thumbs up button, click the subscribe button, you know the drill by now. And if you want to see more ideas for things you can do with a single projector, then why not check out this video where I get creative with a projector in my small home studio. I'm Gavin Hoey, thanks for watching.